Hi, everyone. My name is Nyambura Mundiga, and this is Justice Watchers, episode 7. It has been a pleasure speaking to human rights defenders who have spoken to us about intersecting things around what it is to be a human rights defender in Kenya, especially in the present political climates. Today, we will be speaking on a very important intersection of climate justice, and I would not think of a better person to speak about this other than Sankara Nyagaya. Is that how I say it? Nyagaya. Sorry,
Yes.
unajua
Iko sawa.
mufanya hivyo
Iko
kwa
sawa.
letters. Nyagaya, sivyo?
Okay.
Na nataka introduce because I think our conversation will be very, very timely, especially because COP is happening.
Exactly.
Na najua watu wameona news wakaona COP, but there are very many things that we miss. But Nyagaya, you are the front line of this work. Tafadhali introduce yourself and alafu tutaenda kwa conversation.
Okay. So my name is Sankara Nyagaya. I'm a visual and performing artist. I'm also a human rights defender, currently working with the social justice movement of Kenya. I convene for the Ngong Social Justice and Environment Center, where we are also linking the climate change and human rights. Yeah. I also founded an organization. It's called Kenya Forest Club.
Okay.
One of the few youth-led organizations that
which is doing amazing work.
Supported in developing the concept and the framework for the Green Army, a concept that the government is actually implementing. Adapted and is implementing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a privilege to be here.
It's nice to know that you've done something, you've created something from a community level. The government is adapting.
Yeah.
And I hope they adapt it as you put it. So they're not removing
things.
Exactly. Especially the community-oriented things.
True.
You know what? Saizi umevaa green. In terms of, everything that you do now, umevaa Wangari Maathai.
True.
But sitaki tufike kwa conversation yetu sababu we'll be talking about people like Wangari Maathai, women like Wangari Maathai in the right of it. But wewe pia ni alumni wa Human Rights Academy.
Mimi ni alumni wa WHRD Academy, Defenders Coalition. Last year, we had a very vibrant 1 week. With top-notch facilitators from environment justice departments. And also, psychologists for the well-being of the human rights defenders, and also some cyber security experts.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing.
Who also impacted some very protective and progressive knowledge.
Tumekuwa na wengine hapa kwa podcast, and it's been interesting to have the mental health conversation.
Nice.
We must say, which I forgot to mention, that this series is by Defenders Coalition, an organization that works with human rights defenders around protection, safety, and security. And to our podcast today, Sankara, watu wengi, when we think about climate change, we think about it in terms of a high-level conversation where we have Wangari Maathai, or we have now the president's Duale, right? But we don't see how that conversation, in terms of how the current climate crisis is a human rights issue. Would you expound to us for us to understand why the climate crisis is a human rights issue?
Yeah, the climate change issue is a very deep human rights issue, because when you critically look at climate change and where it emanates from, is from capitalism and imperialism, because Africa is suffering climate change repercussions. But we are suffering the effects, but what propagates the effects is not really something that we are engaged in as an African people, as an African continent. So this is a continuous cry for the African people, because we are the ones who are in the middle of this crisis. But the people responsible for this kind of impact are not stopping and are not ready to stop, because they are prioritizing profits
Yes.
over the people.
That's true.
So that already is a violation of the human rights, because what the basic principles of human rights is equality, equity, humanity,
yes,
dignity. So when you are ready to trample dignity, when you are ready to step on humanity just for the purposes of making more profits, then that's where it all begins. Yeah. So that's a very elaborate intersection on how, or rather on how climate change is a human right issue.
Yeah.
Because people, corporations, companies, multinationals, governments are constantly prioritizing money, profits over humanity, over the dignity of man or mankind.
It's nice that I'm glad you say that in terms of corporations and governments, because I think sometimes you don't see what's the human cost of climate change. And I know someone who comes, I don't know whether that's accurate. People who come from arid and semi-arid areas, right, are mostly hit by climate change. But hiyo si kusema pia like people in urban areas or people in other spaces are not hit. But just to paint a picture in terms of food security, loss of land, kwa communities you work in, what's a picture of the human cost on climate change?
I would like also to just mention from your sentiments, the repercussions on climate change. Like you've said, they go both ways in the urban areas.
Yeah.
And also,
I think last ilikuwa long rains is the last time tuliona what climate change the havoc
to the city. Yeah.
Yes, the havoc it created.
We lost comrades there. There were comrades from the social justice movement that we had to go.
Yeah.
And so I can say when we talk about the difference of the two, they differ. The repercussions differ in rural or in semi-arid areas.
Yeah.
And in urban areas, the impacts differ.
Yeah, that's true.
Because now the city was struggling with
infrastructure,
basically.
Yeah.
And in the arid areas is lack of basic necessities. You see, so that cuts deep.
That's true.
Because even
there's already lack limited, so when climate change hits, it takes
all. It takes all that is there. Because in the city there is already adaptation. People in the city are there first and foremost to do what? To try and know how they can make a living. Making a living is basically being able to afford the 3 meals, shelter, and clothing. You see, and when you translate this to the semi-arid areas, you see how it cuts deep. You see, because there is no urban setting to go and try to make money. You have to use what you have. If you have land that's unproductive, that's what you have.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else that you have to go.
What
if
are they
we
called?
have one,
It's
if
water,
we have
it's
one
land.
well,
Yeah.
we will share it, the whole community, people plus animals.
So if those ones are destroyed, it means that lives are actually at risk.
And climate change is destroying everything.
Yeah.
The wells are drying up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cost is unbearable.
I know we see it, but we see it in pictures, and usually we see it very late when the government is either purchasing, goats, camels, and cows from pastoralists, right? But it's that we already know the cycles of climate change, and perhaps our what is it called? National Disaster Program is, I don't know, because year out, we already know. Hizi vitu nasema seti zina happeningi mara moja, sivyo? So, but we see the response as the same. And true to what you're saying, we know that the cost is human lives, right?
True.
But the resources of production, there's a laxity by the actors, including government, to either help adapt or create infrastructures that shield communities from the impact. Would you speak?
Yeah, it's evident, and it's not something that we can say is that level of ignorance has been there for a very long time.
Is it ignorance or indifference? Ni kama, because it's right there, it's well documented. Kama kuna kitu inakuanga documented vizuri ni
and that's why
ni effects za climate change.
And that's why we can say the government is ignorant.
Indifferent. I choose the word indifferent.
Because we have what we call the National Drought Management Authority that is primarily supposed to be working in the ASAL and semi-ASAL regions of this country to make sure that they are constantly developing strategies to push back the desert lands and make them productive for food, because that's the also basic, software for survival.
Survival,
So I've not really seen the National Drought Management Authority hitting the headlines for doing anything. In regard to fighting,
the problems are usually very short term. The solutions are usually very short term.
Very, very short. And as we keep on moving, the effects are getting deeper, but we have no solutions.
That's true.
So it is important that we have these solutions.
And there's I think there's the baseline, because communities know what needs to be done.
Communities know. It is actually entrenched within the communities, because communities have been existent since time immemorial.
And they have dealt with these disasters.
And they've known, that, 7 years from today, there will be a shift in the weather patterns, and we will be going back to that particular. So we are preparing in this way.
So therefore, it's the government's work to come weave or support.
Support.
Actually, support is the one, because that's the role of the government. Now, when we talk about the effects of climate change, we have, of course, all communities, but there's a very specific way that women are affected by climate change. Would you speak about that?
Women are the first persons to suffer the effects of climate change. It's evident, because when we talk about climate change and its repercussions, the first thing that comes into the conversation is the threat to food.
Yes. Yes.
Because, like I said, that's the basic software for survival.
That's true.
It's food. And this is what climate change comes and cripples, so that there is no food. Immediately there is no food, who is to blame in a common community setup? I
mean, it's also that women and girls are charged with the responsibility to feed the households.
It is a basic African, principle and way of doing things. Our women are godly, they are the source of life, and existence, because right from your inception, even before, when you're still in the womb, you are learning the world, feeding and doing everything through your mother. So they are a very instrumental grid, source of power in the universe. The being of a woman. So, and our ancestors have passed down the culture, the responsibility of that continuity, of life is bestowed upon the woman.
The gathering.
So the woman will make sure that the food that she's giving, right from the time the child is in the womb, is clean food that we will nourish and grow and make the child grow. The child basically forms the community. In growth. So the moment there is instability in the daily feeding of a community, the women take the blame, because the kitchen, they are the managers of the kitchen.
Yeah.
They know tomorrow, this is what we'll prepare. This is what is good for the children's bones. This is what is important for the health of my husband. This is what we need as women to consume in order to, to be more fertile, or, so they bear all
the responsibility
and equally the blame. You see?
Yeah.
So when there's responsibility, there's little recognition. But when there are challenges, there are all the blames.
That's a good point.
So from all the blames, a lot of things also come in.
Such as violence.
Such as violence.
Yeah.
Such as pressure, mental instability.
Yeah.
Because she's juggling between a lot of stuff.
And that's also the case. When you mention that, it makes me relate to the conversation away from women from semi-arid and arid areas. That conversation about mental health issues is also very big for women farmers, women smallholder farmers, because of climate change. And one of the reasons is because when they lose the harvest, right, it means that there's not enough subsistent food, whether it's in places like Nyeri, and so women find it hard to cope because it means there's less food in the granary, less food, for household decisions like buying soaps and other things.
True.
But to go back to your point, it's that one of the things that we don't see. That's the point I want to underpin, is that one of the reasons we don't see sometimes why GBV is higher during drought and climate crisis is just because the order of provision or nourishment has been, has been disrupted, and women are left to have to fend for their families, right? Fend for their families, meaning walk long distances or forfeit their own meals so that the children can eat. And it's a sad way that we don't see how climate change and GBV are related. Are interlinked. But please carry on. I cut you short.
Women in mental health, women are prone to be affected more with mental health than men. Not to say that women are weak in any sense, but just to highlight the aspect that women are more emotional beings than men. Men are more physical,
If you call that's a tricky place to go, though.
No. In total respect.
No, I hear you, but it's a tricky place to go.
Women are emotional. They are emotional, like the sense of their. That's why a woman would have more empathy than a man. Their aspects, their emotional strength is on a higher vibration than men.
Okay.
So a slight thing would tend to make a woman think further, think about it for long, trying to seek solution or trying to, think critically about it. But a man would not really have that deep thought about something,
That's true.
So immediately we are having.
I say that's true, but I agree and disagree in some of the things you're saying, But yes.
So immediately a woman is predisposed to pressures that come with lack of food in the house. They will break down easily because internally they know this is my responsibility. These are my children. She is more attached. And the moment she sees or experiences days without food, days without proper shelter or good clothing to cover from the weather shifts, she is more emotionally disturbed. And that one pushes her to suffer that mental instability.
Yeah. I don't want us to dwell in that point because it's very controversial in many ways. But in terms of the strength and the responsibility of the women in terms of looking for food, but to the extent of how that affects GBV or predisposes women to GBV and mental health issues, and sexual harassment in terms of exchange for food or exchange for trade things. Like we've seen it in terms of it's been an ongoing conversation. But I think I would want us to frontline people like Wangari Maathai in terms of how women human rights defenders are also at the front line fighting for sustainable environments and equitable justice, climate change justice.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, women do it passionately, and they've been doing it passionately for a very long time. Because from the setting that we have culturally, they feel obligated, because like I said, climate change affects us in many different ways. But the first one that raises the major concern is the threat to food, So I really applaud Wangari Maathai for coming out strongly. And I am usually very proud that she came into the global space from this country.
Yeah, she
It
did.
also communicates a lot about the resilience, the strength, and the capability of our women in the country.
That's true.
Because from her works, we've been able to see a lot of
young
many other African women
climate
coming
change
up,
justice activists.
Yeah.
That's been now one of the things that we were speaking about. Sorry, did I cut it short?
I just wanted to say that her works have been very influential, and they remain so up to date.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a movement that she founded. That's called the Green Belt Movement. That has been carrying on with her works. What she was actually doing, that particular movement is trying to, bring many other women together with HIVOS and VCA.
Oh, okay. That's the Mama Mashinani project.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're,
That's what I wanted us to talk about. Yes.
They are nurturing and bringing up women in the community who can stand up and voice community concerns, oppressions, injustices around climate, And this is actually what Wangari Maathai was. So seeing many other Wangari Maathais being planted simply means that the struggle continues, and we will definitely be able to push forward for a better and just environment and
futures, equitable, more futures.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I wish the work that women human rights defenders on climate change front actually is well documented, because there's a lot. Every time I go to the communities, I am amazed at how much women are doing with or without support, simply because they know what you said in terms of food security is in their hands. And I see women doing it over and again. But it's also that I've seen young Gen Z activists, on global stages, who draw the inspiration from Wangari Maathai. And so, it's nice to hear that there's actually a project called Mama Mashinani. Then it's doing amazing work. And it would be nice to see the documentation of the same, right? In terms of the voices for just climate action. And just to learn the strategies, especially for, I wonder, is this just in ASL communities or is it in?
Yeah, currently it's in the ASL communities. Like I shared before, the challenges are different.
Yeah.
And if you look keenly, those areas are more exposed to more suffering. So it was imperative for VCA, HIVOS, Defenders Coalition, Green Belt, and all these other organizations to try and prioritize. Like we're talking about prioritizing, they're prioritizing profit over.
So prioritize women,
So there is also that sense of prioritizing the people who are more predisposed to these effects, to knowledge, capability in articulating the grassroots concerns to the highest level. A little bit of education in understanding climate change, weather patterns, how they can adapt and how they can mitigate at a community level without having to wait for somebody to come from nowhere.
Community-driven solutions.
Community-driven solutions.
Yeah.
So the focus as of now is on ASAL areas.
Okay.
But definitely growth is inevitable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to see the learnings of it. And maybe that's another podcast series in itself. When we were talking about community-driven solutions, earlier when you and I were catching up, we were talking about the Turkana wind power projects and how, I don't want to preempt your point in terms of how damaging it has been to the community itself. But it's also that this comes up with the lack of proper involvement of the community, but also generally uninformed consent. Please talk about.
So together with the Defenders Coalition, we've been able to also empower communities directly, like I mentioned, to be able to articulate their community concerns. Because you find that the situation in Turkana on the wind power plants is similar to what we're experiencing in Kajiado, in Ngong. Yeah, it's also set to happen in Nakuru County, Menengai Greater area.
Oh, wow.
You see?
Okay.
And it's not a community led adaptation measure.
The community was not.
It's a foreign thing. Even if you look at the donors, even if you look at the funds, where the funds are coming from.
Yeah. Was the community consulted?
There was no free prior consent whatsoever that brought communities together to be able to say that, okay, now these windmills are coming and they will be generating power to the national grid, just like the Ngong is doing. And then the communities are going to get this much from this wind power. Or this is the nexus for mutual benefit, because the power is being taken from Turkana to serve
the rest of the nation.
And it's being sold.
Of course, it's also being exported.
And the community is left like that. Okay?
Yeah.
That's unfair. So the fact that there's no that
free, prior, and informed consent
makes it a mischievous venture. It's already a violation.
Mischievous.
Yeah, it's already a violation, because we have a problem at a community level of how we perceive and know the effects of those particular windmills. If you study the windmills keenly, our weather patterns, how we are able to know that it's going to rain tomorrow or next week, is by studying the clouds, first and foremost, how they move. From our study of the clouds, we've been able to see the clouds gather and they're ready to break and fall.
For as rainfall, yeah.
But what does the windmills do? The windmill disperses those clouds.
Okay.
The force, the wings are very big, they're very massive. They're actually transported for days, almost months. When they're setting up a new windmill, there's a crazy traffic from Ngong Road in that place called Golf Center Railways.
I know it.
Yeah, you'll see trucks on going uphill, and they park for like 2 days and they continue because they're carrying these big, heavy wings. Those wings disperse the clouds.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the clouds are forming and they are ripe and they are ready to break, and these things will just break them away. Oh,
that's sad.
And it won't rain.
That's sad.
We are losing the farmers that are around the place, because like you take an example of Ngong Hills and Menengai, and also in Turkana, the farmers that are around there can no longer farm because the the factors of pollination have already been tampered with by these windmills. They
The
kill
biodiversity and
has been messed.
oh
You know,
wow.
all the small bees, all the small insects that are responsible, the birds, the bats that are responsible for pollination are no longer existent in a particular radius of that plant.
Yeah.
So it makes it very difficult to coexist. Again, another thing is the cold. Where those things are, we have communities already staying there.
Yeah.
But these things constantly
Blow.
make the place very cold, you know, unusually cold, you see. So we have elderly women suffering from issues like arthritis and bone issues.
Yeah, and you know what? National interest projects should not be at the expense of communities.
At the expense of lives.
Yeah. It shouldn't be.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, when you talk about consent, we most of us reduce it to a point of compensation, right, or nyumba kumi. But when I hear you speak in terms of how a national project would adversely affect a community, especially an indigenous community, I think there's need for us to put more time, but more education in the larger public, so that it's not an issue, because that should not be an issue of the particular community.
True.
Right? It should be an issue that all of us raise as a human rights issue.
Because today they'll be in Turkana.
Tomorrow,
they will be looking at a very prime place in Nyeri.
That's true. Yeah. And I was telling you, I used to tell people I don't worry about climate change issues or land issues until now. And now I am really worried, without going to the details of, you know, what conservancies and other things like those do to communities.
Conservancy is good thing you brought it up.
Yeah.
That's also another major threat to the people, because it's coming just like the windmills, green energy or clean energy, but it's clean energy that is supposed to give solutions, but is oppressing more.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad you, let me cut you short there, because I want us to talk about climate change and green energy. Green energy is perhaps the new child of everyone. Everyone is converting things into green energy and green economy, right? There's a conversation about the green economy, and it's looked like a gold star if a company is doing it. Could you elaborate in terms of the harms or some of the violations that green economy is responsible for?
Yeah, green economy. We've talked about the wind. There's unjust transition. You know,
when you talk about educators, when you talk about unjust transitions, please. Some of us, you know, people just hear the words and they don't see the effects of it on communities. So if you can,
unjust
Sankara,
transition,
it would be nice. Yeah.
Unjust transition. Unjust transition. A practical example is the shift from probably moving from, you know, charcoal fuel, firewood, to more clean concepts of cooking around the kitchen. And there's all these campaigns around, we need to decarbonize our kitchens. We need to come up with better ways of fueling food production in the kitchen. But that's just multinational or a corporate conversation. You know, when you try to break it down to the normal community setup, it's something that is not practical completely. You know, but these concepts are getting, you know, millions of dollars in funding,
and they're not answering to the community issues that
they're not in any way providing any solutions.
Yeah, that's true.
The solutions are tailored to fit a certain particular level of people, but the real people who are suffering these repercussions cannot even relate with what these guys are saying. You know.
Yeah, and it's the same conversation. I say, you know, we talk about,
you can't even afford it.
That's true.
You know. So look at the what we're talking about, e-mobility. E-mobility. Take, for example, me, I can buy a bike for 3,000 shillings that I can cycle, you know, back and forth, and I can have my toolbox inside. I can repair my stuff, you know. But now this thing comes, it's 300K.
Yeah.
And they're saying, youths, buy the bikes. Who are we buying the bikes from?
Also, 300K
it's too much to buy a bike for you to try and cut down on the costs for you attending college
it's not even achievable. I mean,
hustling.
most of us don't even know how that money looks like.
So we need a just transition. And if we are really talking about the green energy, and we need to move from fossil fuel and all these other energies that contribute to emissions, then it needs to be just. It needs to be in a manner that respects humanity and will offer a level playing field for everybody.
That's true. We need to be equitable and accessible.
Yeah.
You've mentioned some of the things when you talk about the green economy and the transitions that are needed. But ukiangalia kama wewe, what are the present climate change gaps in policy and restrictive laws that are hindering kazi yako kama human rights defender?
There is a big gap in the free, prior, and informed consent.
Okay.
Yeah, within the communities. That is something that needs to be strengthened before any organization, foreign or even government, wanting to engage with the community. This should be the first, and it's provided for in the Constitution, but there is a total disregard of it. Actually, what happens is mock, they call some people from the community, some yes people, and they reimburse them a few things. Yeah. And then they take their names, or even they don't
public
care.
Participation.
We can even go there and all of us are against that thing. But then when you go there, they tell you, sign here, write your name, sign here.
That's impunity at the community level.
And then they use that information to go and say that these people affirm this thing. Yet you didn't affirm it. It has happened a lot of times. So we really need to start as a community holding government accountable in first and foremost making sure that free, prior, and informed consent is something that has been adhered to. Then the other issue would be on this carbon credit manenos. The Ministry of Environment has been rushing, the amendments here and there, and presenting it to Parliament. You hear it has been assented, just rushing things, and we are rushing things that communities are at the center of, and these communities have no knowledge about it, we, even to a level where communities are like, the government is selling us. We heard the government has sold us to some Danish organization for a lot of millions of shillings, It raises a concern, even maybe where we don't need a concern, because we lack that information, we lack that education.
That's true.
And this is something that now I also applaud the Voices for Just Climate Action, Defenders Coalition, the Green Movement, for doing that civic education.
Matters climate. I think that is one area that has been left behind.
It's very important, especially for the women human rights defenders. In those areas. The moment they are aware that, okay, this is the threshold. Okay, this is the avenue. Okay, so this is the criteria for negotiation or for compensation or for adaptation.
Or even having the language in itself. Because most of the people in Mashinani, they don't have the language to.
Because you find that you can't talk as Nyambura. You say tomorrow, okay, now I have my organization and we are going to speak as Semabox. This is the community, it's facing these challenges. And we are saying that they'll tell you, Semabox, Nyambura, where do you come from, Nyeri? Please stay away from Turkana.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's also that you're siloed into your areas of
so
residence.
the only tool, the only thing that we are left with is to make sure that the communities are empowered to the level of speaking for themselves.
That's
even if I'm gone tomorrow as Sankara, something happens to me, Also, my community in Ngong will still stand up and say, no, we had a few community dialogues you know, that he was organized here in Isiolo, and it impacted 40 women. You know, the women were able to know how climate change affects them.
Yeah.
And they were also able to know the role they can play. They were also able to know the role that the government is supposed to play. And they also were able to know the criteria in which other organizations working towards mitigating or adapting towards climate change,
yes,
should be engaged in a manner that will not violate or undermine the human rights of the people in those communities.
Or leave behind communities.
Yeah.
Sankara, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Ukona final words?
Wangare Maathai once said that it is the little things that you do that matters.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to do a big thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you know what, Minajua, climate change, you do not see progress sometimes because you do something, there's a whole climate change movement in communities, and then either the uptake of the government or climate crisis takes away. So kazi yenye unafanya, I'm sure sometimes it's thankless, but thank you for doing this. And thank you for starting, serious movements that...
So the little things that you do are the ones that matter. The Voices for Just Climate Action, together with their partners, have done a little thing in the ASAL areas of Isiolo, Turkana, Marsabit.
The movement is grow. The movement is growing.
The movement is growing, you know.
Yeah.
From there, other people are plugging in, you know.
Yeah.
There are things lined up, still in the same communities, you know, to continue building their capacity, even to be able also to come to a point of initiating community-led solutions, you know, that they feel themselves, even looking back in their own culture, that, this is how we were adapting, this is how we were mitigating, you know. Those little things really matter.
Yeah.
They form the big thing.
That's true.
Yes, sir.
Small.
Yes,
In
sir.
Kikuyu, we say okahora.
Okahora.
Yeah, okahora.
Okahora. Asante sana, Nyambura, for having me here.
It's been a pleasure. You speak softly, so sometimes I feel like I speak over you.
No.
But this has been a very good conversation.
Asante sana.
You speak softly.
Asante
very
sana.
softly sometimes.
Asante
sana. This has been Justice Watchers by Defenders Coalition, and this has been Sankara Nyagaya. I got it right this time.
Nyagaya.
Yeah. Please leave us your comments and let us see what other intersections you'd want covered in this series. Thank you and goodbye for now.